One of the main people who is in his administration, you can read her tweets, and there are many crazy ones, like just home ownership is racist, even though something like 40 million black people own homes.
Yes.
Okay, but also she'd vote more communists. I'm not paraphrasing.
Yes.
Vote more, and he stood by her.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to read between the lines here.
And the Democrats, my God, please find somebody who can lead. Gavin Newsom is out here in California. Out here in California. Pulling off in his own way what I think he wants to. He's being known more for trolling Trump on his podcast or with other interviews than what he's actually doing in the state of California. They think that's leadership because they don't have it.
The Democrats' big comeback plan is falling apart and fast. What was supposed to be a strong rebound after their last election defeat is now starting to look like total disarray. The DNC has rolled out multiple strategies to regain momentum, but one after another they keep missing the mark, and they don't seem to know why. On a recent episode of his long-running show, Bill Maher broke it all down, exposing exactly why the Democrats' strategy appears to be collapsing. We've got all the details right here, so if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in.
What the Democrats are not doing with this is leading. The energy in their parties with the young people who learn everything about Israel on TikTok. They don't know shit. And their leaders are not standing up and saying, kids, you don't know what's going on here. Every war Israel has fought is a war of defense. Every war, they were attacked first. And they're not doing that.
Bill Maher believes one of the Democratic National Committee's biggest problems is its failure to level with younger voters. In his view, the party isn't just missing the mark, it may be shaping a one-sided version of reality. Maher argues that many young people are being influenced by incomplete narratives, especially when it comes to history and global issues. He insists that if leaders within the Democratic National Committee focused on delivering clear, balanced, and fact-based perspectives, things could look very different. Instead of reacting emotionally, young voters might develop a more grounded understanding of the issues. For Maher, this isn't just a messaging problem, it's a growing credibility crisis.
In fact, it would have to be with traditional and conventional Democrats. Let's have just a speck of empathy for them in this regard. You got a younger generation of progressive Democrats that pretty much are making their influence felt. And then you've got the old guard that are at the mercy of them. They want to maintain power. And you want to sit up, you got to receive votes. Look at what happened in New York City. No disrespect, but do we really think that Zohran Mamdani was the most qualified candidate to be mayor of New York City? Come on now, we know better. I'm wishing him well. I'm not being disrespectful. He's smart, he's sharp, he's quick on his feet. I'm not disrespecting him in any way. But he had never done anything. You got a governor, a former governor, who was a 3-term governor, coasting to his fort before the scandal hit. You boot him out of office. He's qualified to get your support.
Questions about leadership choices are also raising eyebrows. Critics argue that lesser-known figures are being elevated into major roles without the experience to match the moment. In contrast, someone like Andrew Cuomo was once viewed as a seasoned, battle-tested leader, despite his career being derailed by scandal. What's striking is how quickly that controversy faded from public focus after his resignation. Rather than returning to experienced leadership, the spotlight has shifted to less established names. That contrast is fueling serious questions about the party's priorities and whether experience still carries the weight it once did.
For 3 terms, en route to 4, to run the state, but you don't want to run in the city. And you're going to hand the reins to a 33-year-old
he's also a communist.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm not saying that as a slur.
All right.
I'm saying that's his political view. It's a view you're allowed to have in this country, and people are allowed to vote for it.
So you have people that don't want that, and they want that in this country. And unfortunately, if you're a Chuck Schumer or some of the old guards, you're at the mercy of all of that, still trying to stay in office, knowing that you got voters out there that would support that ahead of you.
Critics also argue that many younger supporters are being drawn toward ideas that resemble communism, not necessarily out of deep understanding, but because of how those ideas are being presented. Figures like Chuck Schumer are often cited as leaders who should take a more active role in explaining why the United States embraced capitalism over communist systems. Without that historical and economic context, critics believe young voters are left navigating complex ideologies without the full picture, making them more vulnerable to one-sided narratives.
One of the main people who is in his administration, you can read her tweets, and I mean, there are many crazy ones, like just home ownership is racist, even though something like 40 million black people own homes.
Yes.
Okay, but also she'd vote more communists. I'm not paraphrasing.
Yes.
Vote more, and he stood by her.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to read between the lines here.
Yes. Then turning around and asking the president for $21 billion.
Well, I mean, as the person who said Democrats are too weak and woke, I think that's your quote. I mean, this has got to be what you're talking about.
According to Maher, the Democratic Party often comes across as hesitant and overly influenced by internal pressures. He argues that this reluctance to challenge more extreme viewpoints allows them to grow unchecked. While the party strongly promotes equality and social justice, critics say those goals can become harder to achieve if they're tied to ideas perceived as too radical. Most American voters, they argue, still support capitalism as the foundation of the economy. If the DNC continues drifting away from that, it risks alienating a large portion of the electorate, something that could carry serious consequences in future elections.
I do think what you're getting at is, and I feel this when I travel, particularly in the middle of the country, like, it is hard to miss as an elected leader that people are so desperate for some kind of change. Like the young people in particular will either take it from you nicely, or they will eventually kick down the door. It's just a matter of figuring out which one is going to come first. And I think the old guard has not yet caught up to the fact that the game that they learned to play, it's a totally different game now. It is a totally different operation, and they haven't adapted and they haven't left. And so no matter where you go, I think Mamdani is a New York City thing. I don't think that would work in other places.
Might work here.
But
There's no question that younger voters want change, but critics argue that embracing extreme ideologies isn't the solution. Both Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith have emphasized that the real issue isn't the desire for change, it's the lack of context behind it. They point to platforms like TikTok, where complex political and economic topics are often reduced to short, emotionally charged clips. Critics say this leads to a shallow understanding, leaving many young people without the full picture.
I think it's a symptom of a bigger issue, which is the old guard of politics. It's done. It's over. It doesn't work anymore, and it's certainly, on my side of the aisle, not playing effective offense against Donald Trump.
Yeah, there are things to be learned from Mamdani. You can take politics aside, policy aside. Very few Democrats, very few Republicans, I can't think of many, who have been able to insult, disparage, and go at Trump and still sometimes get results that are favorable for the people we represent with Trump's blessing.
For sure.
And
Because he had him to the Oval Office.
Well, but whatever, he had the fake kid, the headline that he gave him, and the different things.
You.
I mean, it's not
the
that.
guy is, it's all about personal with him.
Yes.
He's not, Donald Trump is not home at night reading the briefing books, I promise you.
Constant attacks on Donald Trump don't seem to be weakening him. In fact, critics argue they may be doing the opposite. Rather than pushing voters away, the nonstop criticism often reinforces his outsider image and strengthens his connection with supporters who feel ignored by traditional politics. What's more surprising is his ability to gain traction among groups that have historically leaned Democratic, including Black voters, Hispanic voters, and even segments of women voters. These shifts, even if small, can make a big difference in close elections.
However, the idea of the status quo having been successful, when you see how quickly the next generation has had a completely different life than the one before, it's hard for people to truly trust that the old guard knows what they're doing in the long run. I mean, a generation ago, they were still saying UFOs, for Christ's sakes. It's now UAP, So the idea of all these things are happening. I mean, you look at it, and young people, maybe they don't have it wrong.
No, it's still the economy.
Maybe it's the others who do.
Well, it could be both. I mean, it's the economy, stupid. I've asked this question so many weeks on this show, and I can never get an answer. I just don't understand the American economy. I really don't. I don't understand how there could be so much wealth, and I pay so much in taxes, and it doesn't seem to get to the people. Like, I don't even mind doing it. Over half, always, way over half.
The conversation takes another turn when Maher questions Gavin Newsom about where taxpayer money is actually going. California ranks among the highest tax states, yet critics argue the results don't match the cost. Projects like the high-speed rail system have faced delays and rising costs, while homelessness continues to grow across major cities. For Maher and others, the issue isn't just taxation, it's accountability. If people are paying more, they expect real, visible results, not ongoing problems with no clear solutions.
That I'm having with this conversation right now is that we're accusing the politicians of not knowing. They know. $39+ trillion in debt.
Yeah.
You can't pay TSA workers $1 billion over the last month, but you could spend $800 million to $2 billion a day. And somehow, some way, you find that money to finance a war. You knew you had the damn money. You knew where it was. You knew how you wanted to allocate it, and you knew you didn't want it to go to the American people. That ain't ignorance, that's viciousness. That's cruelty. That's not thinking about the American public.
Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back, calling out what he sees as a leadership vacuum. He pointed directly at Gavin Newsom, arguing that the governor is gaining more attention for political jabs and media appearances than for delivering results in California. According to Smith, this isn't leadership, it's distraction. And it highlights a deeper issue. The party is struggling to present a strong, unifying figure.
Democrats, my God, please find somebody who can lead. Gavin Newsom is out here in California. Out here in California. Pulling off in his own way what I think he wants to. He's being known more for trolling Trump on his podcast or with other interviews than what he's actually doing in the state of California. They think that's leadership because they don't have it.
When you put it all together, questions about leadership, concerns over spending, high taxes with limited results, and strategies that may be backfiring, a clear pattern begins to emerge. For many observers, the issue isn't a lack of ideas. It's a lack of clarity, accountability, and real connection with everyday Americans. If these problems aren't addressed, critics believe the DNC risks deeper internal divisions and potentially losing even more ground in future elections. And with that, we wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.